All right, we're ready to call the meeting. Here.
Here.
Yes.
Jennifer Blum?
Here.
Laura Ramsey? Here.
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 And LakeCAM is recording the meeting. Anyone else? No. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, we have our student reps, Boston and Katie. Thank you.
Hi. So the senior class will walk the red carpet on Friday afternoon at the Laker Choice Awards. They will all dress up for the award ceremony to find out who won the yearbook superlatives. Also, for DECA, 50 students won a medal or trophy at the virtual district awards and now hope to go to the 3-day state championship. You'll hear more about this from the DECA representatives tonight. Also, we celebrated Valentine's Day with a record-breaking carnation sale thanks to the class of 2023.
This week is our Dog Be Nice week. We are accepting food donations, and students and staff are submitting pet pictures, and we are voting to determine the 12 pets that will be printed on our Dog Be Nice calendar. Those sales will go up in April. Also, our raffle is being held during lunch, and it features signed photographs, fun events, free prom tickets, and more, and all the proceeds go to Polaris, which is an organization to prevent human trafficking. And at our Laker basketball games, we're starting to put on themes. Last Friday, we had a successful whiteout, and this Friday, we'll have a jersey-themed night.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for our student reps?
Thank you.
Thank you. You always
Thanks, Boston.
nice to fill us in. Thank you. Is that enough water for you? Just
Oh, yeah, just gotta stay hydrated.
uh-huh.
They've had a long evening. They've been here before 6, so.
Oh, that's right. They were here.
Thanks.
So we can accept the minutes, and then do we want to move DECA right up?
Did you ask about recording?
I did.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that? We'll do the minutes, and then we'll just move DECA up. So we can take it a little bit out of order.
Yep.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the February 2 minutes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I also need the executive session minutes. But we're supposed to keep those
So moved.
aside.
What's that?
Aren't we supposed to keep those aside for right now?
Yes,
Yeah, we're not voting on the executive session minutes tonight.
we can
Uh,
vote on them.
we can vote on them, but
Just
they're
keep
not.
them,
Just a
okay,
marginal
all right. So I had a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion's
Just
carried.
confirm that these are held. until
Held,
after.
yeah, thank you.
Ms. Blum is gonna have to abstain, she wasn't present.
Thank you.
All right, so I thought, what did she say?
She said thank you,
Oh,
she's being polite tonight.
good, Jen. I thought we would do the DECA overnight trip and just hear from the DECA folks, if we could.
So we do have Principal Dessert, and I'll let her do the rest of the introductions. Thank you for allowing them to come up front here. Typically, this is done early in the year, but in light of kind of the circumstances, we're just happy that they're here presenting, and I certainly support and endorse their recommendation tonight. Principal Dessert.
Thank you. We, I think Freetown-Lakeville is certainly known for its DECA chapter around the state. I did a little bit of math, which isn't something I often do for fun, but 68 members means that we're almost at 10% of our school participates in DECA. It's just such an exciting, wonderful event, and it's something that, students who graduated years ago still talk about as their DECA adventure. So 50 of them are qualified to go on to state, so we have speaking on their behalf. We have Ella, Nikhil, and Shea, and their advisor, Mrs. Cronin.
Good evening.
For those who don't know, DECA is a student-centered organization whose program of leadership and professional development is designed for students enrolled in marketing education. National, state, and district-level organizations help to apply learning, integrate into classrooms, and promote competition among students. The organization aims to develop academically prepared, community-oriented, and professionally responsible leaders. And that is exactly what it has done for me and many others. My name is Ella Fisher. I'm a junior at Apponequet, and I'm the co-president of our school's DECA program. I am someone who has been heavily involved in many school activities since day one of those being DECA. I began competing in the personal financial literacy category at DECA my freshman year. That year, I took first place at districts and tied for 5th at states. Nationals were then canceled. Last year, I competed virtually. I took 4th at districts and 8th at states. This year I competed and was able to place 3rd at districts. By being involved in DECA at this competitive level, I work to seek opportunities for my future. With college rapidly approaching for many of us, our success stories within the DECA organization is going to be a large part of our applications. This year, not only will I be competing, but I am also running for state office, along with my other co-president, Shea Garland. In order to be able to run for office, Shea and I had to send in applications, take exams, and go through the interview process. Along with that, we have taken months to prepare our campaigns to allow us the greatest chances of success. We will have days to campaign and give speeches at the competition. Being a state officer is a large and important role within MassDECA's organization, and it is a huge opportunity for us to have. Shea and I, along with the 50-plus other members of Apponequet's DECA chapter, are hoping that you will be able to take into consideration the opportunities that will be lost if we are unable to attend this competition. While we absolutely understand the severity of the COVID pandemic and the health risks that something like this has, we truly believe that MassDECA has and will continue to work to make this conference a safe environment for all who attend. I hope that you are able to recognize the importance that the ability to attend this conference has on our student body, and we ask that you take our request into careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nikhil Barnick, and I'm a junior here at Apponequet. I've taken part in DECA at Apponequet for the past 3 years, and I'm also involved with Student Council and am the treasurer for the class of 2023 student government. I would like you all to understand how much of an impact DECA has had on me personally. Thanks to this club, I've become a more responsible and more independent person. I've learned so much from DECA, and it has shaped who I am. Most importantly, DECA has become one of the catalysts for my professional career after high school and a catalyst for my journey towards being an adult. One of the most important aspects of DECA is the ability to travel with your peers and your teachers to overnight trips. 2 years ago, I traveled to Cape Cod, to Boston, and even to Washington, D.C. on overnight DECA trips. I've even met people from all over Massachusetts and from Florida, Texas, Alabama, Washington State, and even Germany through DECA. These experiences will forever be part of the DECA experience for me. I feel that it's extremely important that all DECA members are able to share these experiences. Through DECA, especially overnight field trips, I've learned about myself, about the world, and about business. I strongly suggest that you go forward with allowing us to take overnight trips. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shea Garland. I'm a junior and the co-president of DECA at Apponequet. We have all lost something to COVID. The student population lost numerous events and opportunities during the past 3 school years. We are excited and proud of our members' efforts in qualifying for the state competition. We are passionate and eager to pursue this opportunity to grow while enjoying the reward for our efforts. Majority of our members have not experienced what a true DECA event is. Staying overnight would allow our attendees to fully take advantage of this leadership conference. On behalf of the Apponequet DECA, we would appreciate your consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As their advisor, I'm here for any questions if you have any at this time.
Well, thank you
I think
for
we
that.
can hear how DECA has
and we
impacted
all
them.
respect DECA and
Yeah.
everything it does for the students here, and actually across the state.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing, and I hear you, Shea, when you say we haven't had a chance to do this because of this pandemic. And I know that Mrs. Barron has been a strong proponent in making sure that everybody who is able to and eligible can attend. And we are also cognizant of the fact that every safety precaution is being promoted for this event, because you will have a lot of young people in the room, but what an exciting adventure. With that, Mr. Owen.
I'll make a motion
Thank you.
to have to at least to have the discussion to accept the overnight trip.
The overnight trip, yep.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
This shouldn't be a discussion.
No.
Right? It's we're moving things pretty rapidly. I don't want to say back to normal because
No, but we're
that's been a
getting there.
cliche, but if the administration feels that we have everything in place, the advisors feel, and more importantly, the students feel this is a no-brainer.
Yep. Agreed. Anyone else?
Through the chair, I'd just like to publicly just thank Sherry for the work that she did behind the scenes as well. Just yeoman's work, and we appreciate you.
And
So
it benefited
thank you.
many students.
Quite frankly, we did it all for these students, and they
Yep.
had one chance to do this, and we were going to make sure that everyone could attend.
That's right.
Thank you so
And you'll all be very, very good, and I wish the two candidates success in their run for office. That's fantastic. Yes.
Have we ever had someone
That's a
from
good question.
Rappahannock as a state officer?
Yes.
Okay.
McPhail is currently a state officer.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Tori
Oh,
Lara
okay.
Yeah. the
excellent.
before, so.
Excellent.
Just for the sake of saying, and I'm assuming we're having all the appropriate chaperone quantities and everything else, check the
Yep.
box on that?
Yeah,
Great.
we adhere to their policy of 1
Yeah.
to 10.
Oh, yes, of course. Of
Okay.
course.
Yes.
So there is a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. I'm sure there's no objections. Jen, I didn't hear you said aye, right? Yep, okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Best of luck to you.
And I'm not going to say good luck. I'm going to say just do it, do it. So you guys don't have to hang around.
No,
Go ahead.
Principal Desert does make a valid point, right? We hear all these great things anecdotally about the
Right.
success of DECA. I know we have a packed schedule all year round. It would be great just to hear the successes that we had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just so we know.
yeah,
We don't
just,
have a history. Thank you so
You
much.
might be able to set
Good
up.
luck, guys.
So,
Good luck.
because of that other activity we discussed, I'm pushing a couple other presentations, athletics and things. I'm sure we can incorporate
We
it into a
should.
future update, even if it's just a brief presentation as
Yeah.
part of our accomplishments like we do with other activities.
Yeah.
Right, you're looking at 10% here, so
Right.
that's a significant
We can make that work.
percentage. We'll make it work. We will. Okay, thank you. So now we'll go back to the regular agenda. Old business. It's to you, Ms.
You
Lees.
forgot public participation.
Oh, I did forget public. I'm so sorry, because I moved DECA, so I've ruined the agenda. Public participation. Okay. Now we'll go on to Ms. Lees. Thank you very much. I apologize.
Thank you. Included in your packet is the general fund overview for FY22 year-to-date through February 10th, 2022. The revenues are $22.7 million, and we have an expenditure budget available after open purchase orders of $4.3 million. And these amounts are comparable when looking at activity in a traditional year. I will continue to closely monitor the results of operations compared to the budget as we proceed to the spring months. I am watching various accounts at this time and will continue to monitor them over the spring. These include utilities, overtime costs for snow removal, and costs for substitutes. To date, I feel we have adequate salary savings to cover any possible shortfalls. And in relation to COVID cares, there are no updates at this time.
Thank you.
That would conclude FY22.
Well, I know I just paid an oil bill that
Yeah.
blew me away. So thank you for monitoring that. I cannot believe it, but we appreciate that. Now we have DESI guidelines
So
on COVID.
I could almost just a little drum roll. So we kind of hoped last meeting that this would be where we're kind of at, and
Yeah.
I think we are. We talked about trends and moving in the right direction. I think clearly that's been established. Certainly as a result of Governor Baker and Commissioner Riley's decision on the state mandate on masks in schools, I am strongly recommending the last day masks are required in our district be Friday, February 18th. Consistent with other pieces, just please keep in mind, stakeholders, that Students will still have to adhere to the 5-day quarantine if they test positive. That's pretty standard. That masks will still be required on buses because that's a federal public health order. All students, staff are required to wear masks on both school buses, and will require masks in nurse's office. Other than that, it is by choice. It is the 18th for those that were even more excited by my news of the 18th. Haven't done the math, the school vacation the following week, so technically our last school day prior to the 28th timeline is the 18th. But at that point, we certainly would support any and all. We'll continue to do the mitigation strategies of cleaning and all those other things that we've done extremely well. We have only 9 positive cases this week, just to give you an example. When you look at the trend, I've provided you some of the COVID numbers that exist. The trends of positivity rate for both towns, Board of Health, nurse has been part of this process, are going down. I think all the metrics brought us to this point. If you recall from our last school committee meeting, I think it was the hope of all the board members here that we would have some announcement prior to our meeting, because our next meeting is until that time. So I certainly would hope that the committee would support that direction moving forward. I don't want to take away any other comments. I know some board members have questions,
Yes.
but that's where we're at this
Mr.
point.
Senkowitz is going to start.
So, Reg, it would be your recommendation just to vote that tonight, as far as the last day being the 18th?
It is not necessary, but I know this
Right.
board has taken this position, and I think it would be a solid message to the community
Yeah.
for
That was-
consideration.
Agreed.
That was my question. So I didn't know if a vote needed to be taken, or you already have within your limits to be able to do what you need to do.
Or
So
he
the
does.
action could literally be that you're authorizing me to continue to adhere, but, you know, I leave that entirely up to the board.
Let's make a motion.
Go for it. Oh, wait, Mr. Sylvia, you had a question?
No, I guess it's just a clarification on the need to vote.
Right.
I mean,
Oh.
we're just,
You're endorsing the recommendation of the superintendent moving forward to no longer require masks.
yeah, and we
I'll make it-
endorse that there's school tomorrow, and we endorse it. In this
Right.
case, it doesn't really require a vote, it's just a
No,
sort of
we
a
could just
formality by
say
the
by
committee.
consensus, but I think where we
That's correct.
have taken a very firm
Yeah.
stand on this, a vote is appropriate.
So I'll make a motion to endorse the superintendent's recommendation for the 18th to be the last day where masks are mandated.
I'd just like to add to that through the end of this year, of this school year.
Or until the situation changes.
Yeah.
Well, we're giving him approval to determine the masking until the end of the school year.
I don't know.
We
if
have a new
really need to
superintendent
add
coming
that.
on in September, so we want to make sure that we're covering ourselves.
Again,
I-
masking in this situation through the chair, it's been a DESE requirement,
Right.
right? Contrary to
ours.
other public opinion, this body did not have a choice. The district did not have a choice unless we were
We
80%
understand that.
vaccinated.
We
right?
understand that.
So
So should the
it's been
commissioners-
lifted, we should be back to normal, which is
Right.
no
Right.
masks in school.
Yeah, we just vote, our vote is just simply to endorse
Endorse the
that. Yep.
superintendent's decision. Okay?
Okay.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we've got an aye.
The only,
Motion carries.
just as a follow, I'm assuming MIAA has followed suit with this?
So MIA's already made their determination that consistent with the school, they fall within the school that effective the 28th,
Yeah,
Right.
that mask. So just to clarify, it's good, it's actually a
Yeah, it's
good
an
point, and
excellent point.
not to put any gray area. So I'm saying the last day in school, if there are events that are before the 28th that are MIAA, the MIA requirement will be the 28th. And that's actually a real valid point that I hadn't taken. So there may be events during the week of school vacation where our students are participating and it's an MIA sanctioned event and they're required to
until
wear
the
masks.
28th.
Until the
So
28th.
that, yes, Mr. Sylvia.
And I don't want to get tricky or be the bad voice in the room, but I think it's also important to clarify the bus situation, because that's a federal.
That's
mandate.
federal, yeah.
And this doesn't include that, given you don't have the authority at the moment.
We cannot,
Right, that's
no,
correct.
that's, same thing on an airplane, you're still wearing your mask.
It's similar to the nursing health officers. That's,
Yeah.
the buses are a federal mandate, but the idea that, you know, you go to a doctor. and
You're wearing a
that-
mask. Yeah,
The nurse's office is in the school. So, so why do we require it in the nurse's office and not, this is,
Well, I think the and again, not to complicate it, the issue is in relation to the number of potentially sick individuals in a doctor's / health office or nurse's office, right? The potential to have unmasked individuals that maybe are coming down because they are positive cases predicate that. I guess I would say to anybody who is concerned that that is going to be strictly enforced and disciplined should look to my record for this past year. That has not been something that has been an issue, nor do I anticipate that being an issue within our schools.
I just like to be consistent, right? So if we're going down that road, let's just be consistent with that. But I'll leave
Okay.
that up to your, so, thank you.
All right, so that's great news. New business, the calendar. Which I lost.
So we have two calendars in front of us.
Again.
So there was one that was sent out that original piece here.
Mm-hmm.
There was the second revision, and the detail is instead of having 2 meetings in January, we moved it to 2 meetings in February to really highlight the budget aspect and not have a meeting right when we come back aspect of it.
Right.
So that's correct me if I'm wrong, that's the major change.
Yeah, the impact wasn't to student instructional days. It was more related around the meetings.
You had mentioned that you had thought about the one meeting in January.
Yes.
But I had already done the calendar and you'd already seen it, so that's
Got
why
it.
the second one to
Okay.
reflect what you had proposed.
And then the only other issue that came up was brought up by the town clerk about.
So I'll make a motion
Okay.
to open the discussion to accept the
Yep.
calendar as presented that reflects
The one.
one meeting in January and the change of dates in February.
That's great. Now,
I'll second that.
Okay, so, thank you. For discussion, was the town clerk who mentioned a voting day, which we don't normally, I mean, we really try hard not to have kids in the building when people are in the buildings, using them as poll places.
That's November 8th.
No, it's
No,
September 6th.
September-
It's a
It'd be the
primary.
first day.
Oh, the
She's concerned
primary.
about the primary.
It's
The last few years, we've stayed away from it on a national
Yes.
election piece. This is a primary. The town clerk, where I respect her opinion, was more the fact of we'll have a new governor, but we vote for the governor every 4 years, what have you. So I'm of the position with, let's still move forward with it as we have it here. It's traditionally the day after. We did add a wrinkle last year due to religious holidays.
That's right.
I see no reason to delay it a day when a primary election.
Okay, my only devil's advocate here is part of the reason for doing some of the stuff we did at Freetown Elementary in the design of the building. We wanted to make sure we could segregate the area. There was still consensus in town that they did not want people wandering the halls there. There was concern about that. So I would just ask, that and I agree with you, I don't want to shift anything here. Just ask that we make sure through Mr. Ward or whoever is there, that we have monitors. So
I believe it's
yes,
detailed, right?
well, you could do that.
Right.
Well, they're there anyway.
Right. So that was just my comment I was gonna make. Steve, is there any way that maybe we can have an additional detail there for
Yeah.
that day, just to ensure
We should
that?
request that.
Yeah,
I think that would make people feel a little bit better, because
Yeah.
all 3 precincts now voted at Freetown Elementary. I will say primaries aren't the biggest game in town, so I don't know what they'll have for, but whatever. So, okay, so there's, any other discussion on this calendar? I think we all had pretty much killed it.
Will there be parking issues or traffic issues at dismissal and the entry time on that day? Maybe the
So
superintendent, you
yes,
can comment on
that's the other
that.
issue. It sometimes gets
So we'll have
crowded.
to make some adjustments, but the administration has done that in the past. It's the only school that's impacted is at Freetown Elementary School. The 3 campus schools here in Lakeville is not impacted. But we can make accommodations there.
To be strictly selfish about the teachers and staff there, the elections don't open till noon. So
That's true, so
we'll
it's
have
not morning,
parking
it's
for the
the
teachers
PM.
and staff there. It'll be just coming in and coming out, that aspect of it.
It's the afternoon.
It's
yeah.
addressed in the afternoon, which we can take care of.
Polls open at 8 and the primary, the state primary?
So,
I think you're right,
yes,
but-
town elections, I think you're right. I think they are. We'll have to make the right, thank you for bringing that up. I can never remember which one starts at noon and which one at 8, but we just want to be vigilant on that. We will ask for an additional detail, and we'll have to work on parking. So, and we do. I mean, I've seen this happen before.
Yeah, that's not the first time we've done that.
Nope. It's
And we've
the
actually
first
done
day of
it
school,
on the
though.
November election too, so.
But it is the first day of school, so it's already chaotic.
Yeah, we don't, keep in mind, just a little helpful hint, is our K kids start later, so our pre-K, so actually, not all of our students starting.
Oh,
day.
that's right.
They start later, so there's less
Not
less
as many
traffic,
kids.
school traffic.
Yep.
Got it. First,
Also
second,
good to
third grade.
have. Yeah,
So,
okay.
a couple things we could take into account.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye to the
Aye.
one with the 1 January. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. FY '23. Back to Ms. Lees.
Okay, so FY23, everyone should have a binder, a budget binder at this point. One of the things that I just like to highlight is that we might have a pretty substantial change that is in favor of our expenditure budget in regards to health insurance. I still have to run some numbers, but there will be some changes there in the health insurance line.
To our favor.
To our favor. Right. We had originally anticipated a 7.5% rate increase, and we feel that was overly conservative, which will help our budget process. I'm not sure if the committee would like to go section by section. I know that's typically what we've done, but we certainly could do that. I could highlight a few things if you like.
Yes.
Okay. One of the notable items on the assessment sheet in section 2 regards to Chapter 70 funding. So statewide, the Commonwealth has included they've determined that inflation is about 5.9%, and they've included an inflation factor of 4.5% in the Chapter 70 aid. This has resulted in Chapter 70 aid increasing statewide by 8.8%. Our share of the increase was limited to $30 per pupil, which comes out to be a 0.75% increase. So theoretically, we have not received any increases at all to accommodate for inflation. So that's one notable increase I'd like to point out. So our aid will go from preliminarily $11,183,623 to $11,267,023. So that's one key piece there. Yes.
Formula of how the state comes up with that, or cities and towns. I'm sure it's very difficult.
32-step process.
Yes.
Well, it would be for us, but what are some of the things that
really is.
go into that?
It's extremely complex. One of the things they look at is the wealth factors of the towns, and that helps compute the minimum local contribution of each town. We'll see this year that the minimum local contribution did shift between, the increases were much higher in Freetown than Lakeville, putting more of the burden on Freetown, and that was because their minimum local contribution increased about 8%, whereas Lakeville's was more like 5%. So wealth is one factor. There are a multitude of factors. We could probably have one single night just talking about Chapter 70. I don't have the details with me, but I'd be happy to bring an update to the committee at a different meeting to sort of delve into those. At the end of the day, we're only getting the minimum contribution the minimum increase that they're required to give under their regulation, which is $30 per pupil.
Right.
So I don't know if there's anything legislatively how we can, hope to shift the tide someday. I'm concerned that I wouldn't want the school district to suffer any pain from not receiving aid. So I just wanted to bring that to light, that our share is 0.75% of an increase compared to the statewide 8.8%.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It is terrible.
Yeah.
So through the chair, just a quick question, not to interrupt you, but just more on our end. Who are our state delegates on the committee?
On what committee?
So we have representatives on the school committee that are supposed to be the conduit to the state, right? We vote it every year.
It's pretty much me.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe this is something we reach out about?
We can reach out again. I doubt that we will make much headway, but I think it's important to make noise.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I agree.
Great.
When you look at what the other communities are getting, what we're getting, seems as though we need to make some noise.
So I'll put something together, Kara, but I would like your eyes on it.
Sure.
Before I ship it out, so I'll send it to all of them.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
The other piece that we can speak about is circuit breaker aid. In FY22, we originally estimated a $400,000 source of funds. That estimate did not account for the Student Opportunity Act transportation piece, for which in FY22 was the first year reimbursable at a rate of 25%. We didn't include it as a source of funds in the event that the Student Opportunity Act was delayed as a result of the pandemic. For FY23, we have included this. This will be the second year where we would now be receiving a 50% reimbursement for out-of-district transportation and any nursing services that qualify. And so I believe our expenditure level that qualified was about $300,000, $350,000 or so. That should give us about another $87,500. And then the other piece that resulted in an increase in circuit breaker, the average tuition covered is now at higher rates. The state adjusted the foundation rate. That would be our share. So it has resulted in us receiving additional circuit breaker funds. So we basically looked at, I believe it's 37 students in the computation from the Student Services Department. We feel that this is a conservative model in the event that we have 35 consistent with this year and last year. I think the funding should be adequate. So you will see an increase in circuit breaker of about $225,000 when looking at the assessment sheet, the original budget from FY22 to FY23. This funding is based on a 75% reimbursable rate, which has been consistent. And we see statewide the funding has been increased by 11%. It seems that the state is committed to funding the circuit breaker piece, at least on the preliminary level. Any questions on circuit breaker?
Did any of the placements have an increase in tuition? The state also sets the tuition at the placements.
I'd have to look back to the worksheets, which I can certainly do. So your question was, oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is typically, a percentage increase across the board for all out-of-district placements. There was none that were restructured due to extraordinary relief requests, so we had none of those.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I'm good.
So, related to that, are we making an assumption of 2 more out of placement over our current census?
That is correct.
Is that based on known information, or are we just basically adding that?
It's based on known
Yeah.
information at this time.
Okay, so we currently have 35.
Yeah.
We're planning for the next school year, there'll be 37.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good question, too.
In the assessment, you have $375,000 coming out of school choice. What is our current balance?
Yes, so our current fund balance that we ended with last year was $665,000.
Okay.
Compared to just the year before was about $300,000.
Yeah.
So
And,
we do.
how much are we required to do? Because I think it's only 2 years, right?
So school choice does not have a time limit on it.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I can double check that, but I did not see anything in the regulations.
And I'm sorry, what was the fund balance one more time?
665, 348. So we've
right.
developed a pretty healthy balance. School choice.
So we're okay. So that's 75 students. Transportation. Correct me if I'm wrong. We reduced our total buses by 2 in 2018, roughly.
2 years ago. Yeah, 18, 19, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Our current student census, or we're planning, is 100 students less than that. So I know we added 1 bus last year based upon the restrictions are in place, and now the budget for this year is to add another bus to bring us back to this.
No,
No,
the budget this year does not include the addition of a new bus. It is an increase of 47,000, which is a contractual increase.
It's not another.
It's not another bus.
Okay, so we're still one bus less than what we
Yes.
were. Okay,
Correct.
okay. So the increase is not an additional bus, it's just more the fact of contractual.
That's what we have to pay him this year.
That's correct. It's based on, I believe, 23 buses?
It's one, we recouped one of the 2 buses that
Yeah.
we removed, but not both of them.
Okay.
And so for the Chapter 71 transportation, we've typically seen a reimbursement rate between, 75 and 82%. I think we've used a 73% rate, 74% rate here, since it does fluctuate significantly. And it was interesting because if I went through the computations that took what we expected to spend with the reimbursement rates, it actually came pretty close to the cherry sheet preliminary estimate, which is what we utilized here in this case, $1,464,278.
I still think that's another one that we are sort of pigeonholed because of being a regional district, even though we don't get the 100%. So
Well,
it's
that
an
was
area
the
that we should
promise.
advocate for control back because
We have.
you do have buses, especially now at the middle school, senior level. I think moving to this new model is less of an issue, but you have high school students that do not take the bus.
Well,
Right.
that's traditional.
So-
That's always been the case. And the reality is, it wasn't that long ago when we were promised 100% full reimbursement if you were fully regionalized. And that was part of our argument. You remember, instead of having Assawamsett with one contract and Freetown Elementary with another, we went to this model and it didn't work. We just never got the 100%.
Okay. Yep.
No, they lied to their chiefs.
And then the health insurance,
Yeah.
Yes.
that potential impact across the board, right? So we have some pretty hefty numbers in here.
We do.
Especially with retirees and everything else as far as an increase. That's what we're hoping for a benefit there?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
We're hoping for a pretty significant benefit, I would say.
And when are you going to know that, Kara?
I can make some very early computations. Our health insurance consultants are literally taking our bid results, which came in, I believe, last night, the 15th, and they're compiling the results so that they can come back to us for a recommendation. I would then scrape through that data to really see what's best, and also keeping in mind consistency for the district during the pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever we want to call it here, as well. So.
Okay.
Which would put you in line with, if you look at our next school committee meeting, March 9th, we clearly should have most likely a recommendation from the finance director with an adjustment potentially to our budget.
Good.
We moving on to other sections or?
Yeah, I
Sure.
thought Mrs. Barron had a question. No? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
But just tell us what section you're in.
Last question at this point.
Yeah.
I moved on to the central office, section 5.
Okay.
I know some of these are small dollars, but if you could just contribute to why the large percentage increases on some of these.
Sure.
Like travels and conferences, the Fidelity bond coverage.
Yep. So travel and conferences, that was, I
yeah.
believe, to, so you can see in FY21, for example, the expenditures did go up. That covers the Mass Association of School Committees as well as MASC. So just looking at those 2 expenditures alone,
So that's membership, actually.
yep.
That's all that is.
Not for the conference, it's just a member.
Yeah, it's not travel per se, it's not,
All right.
it's.
Oh, it's just the membership fees. Okay.
Yep.
Unless, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's true. It would be just the membership.
Is that the same thing on the bond coverage? Is just more of the fees associated with that, or?
So no, on the Fidelity bond coverage,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that the piece there? So when our district accountant retired, we did restructure some of the duties slightly to get a better segregation of duties within the business office. At that time, I really looked at who's handling cash, bank deposits, who's handling transactions that could put the district at risk, And we did add some fidelity bond coverage for additional staff at that time.
Oh.
And then related to more the liability insurance, I know this was, I think we skipped over this last year for obvious reasons, but a couple of years ago, there was an issue about what insurance is paid by the towns and which is paid by the school. Is this all ironed out? So
It
that
is,
no one is double paying?
There was a review. Our insurance agent worked closely with us to review for duplicate coverage.
Yep.
And we did make some adjustments for duplicate coverage. The other piece that was suggested by our agent was to increase some of the coverages in the event that, let's say we did lose a building to an unfortunate event, that we would have adequate coverage with all of the buildings collectively if we had to rebuild, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, so some of the insurance was bumped up for that very reason.
That makes sense.
Okay. We could talk about the specific schools.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah, and
Yep.
just at the tail end of that section here with the debt retirement,
This one, yeah.
we're doing, I think we're proposing nothing this year for any additional debt, correct?
That's correct.
And so by the end of next fiscal year, it looks like approximately about 400K,
That is correct.
okay.
So this year in FY22, we paid off the swimming pool bond anticipation note. In FY23, we will pay off the general obligation bond for the middle school, which would be about $225,000 savings. In FY26, we will then pay off the general obligation bond for the intermediate school, which is about $190,000.
So nothing in the central office side of things, as far as a recommended option, we excluded. We're funding all the requests. Am I reading that correctly as well?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, you want to start with Assawamsett?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
These numbers always screw me up here, so I just want to make sure. The full-time equivalent for, is that the addition of the paras that we added this year with the ESSER 2?
So that includes, this FTE number includes teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators.
So we had a 2 increase at Assawamsett this past year.
That's correct. So we have,
Or we're proposing 2 additional. One is a teacher, and then one is...
one is a para that was transferred from Freetown Elementary to Assawamsett Elementary. So it's literally just tracking the money of when somebody moves from building to building.
Okay. So, and is that a 1-to-1 para? Is that a grade level para? Is there...
I'd have to go back and check.
Okay.
I do have the details of the individual.
Okay.
I just can't recall.
It was, yeah, it was a 1-to-1.
Okay.
The student moved and the para
student
went
moved
with.
in that para.
Correct.
Okay, good.
And I think you've mentioned this in the past, the supply, because there is an increase in supplies throughout the budget itself.
Everywhere, yeah.
But that increase is not really coincide with the inflation or the cost of that. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. So technically, we're actually taking a budget cut in reality with the inflation that we're faced with. When we're level funding or looking at increases that are lower than 6 or 7% at this point, then we'd be taking a budget cut.
That's a hit, yeah.
That's correct.
Ms. Barron has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Barron.
So Kara, the ESSER 2 grant funding is providing paraprofessionals at the kindergarten level, looks like. Let me read this again. Begun the school year sharing 4 paraprofessionals. Finally have all in the kindergarten. They will continue again next year. That's in Ms. Peralt's second paragraph, facts about Assawamsett.
Yes, okay, so you're in the memo
I am.
section?
Second paragraph.
Yep. So yes, I believe those are the ones funded through the ESSER 2 grant. Those will continue to be funded through ESSER 3 for the next following 2 years, FY '23 and FY '24.
Yes, good.
Those are 2 positions, 3 days a week, 2.5 hours a day, so 7.5 hours a week.
So they're not full-time paraprofessionals?
That's correct.
I didn't catch that.
I didn't
Oh,
either.
okay.
The paras are
The
full-time.
paras are full-time, the
interventionists
interventionists are part-time.
Yes, I'm not talking about interventionists.
Okay.
The paraprofessionals.
Paraprofessionals are full-time, they're paid out of the title grant.
The title grant.
And they will be for the next 2 years?
They will be funded through the title grant,
We don't,
assuming
oh,
that
through the title grant, is it?
Title,
it's
yeah.
part of the application.
Right, and every year we find out whether or not who is available for title funds. These paras were hired knowing they were 1 year only.
Okay, I'm confused, and maybe it's me, or maybe I'm not making myself clear. Ms. Penalta said, "We began the school year sharing 4 paraprofessionals and currently have 6 paraprofessionals due to ESSER 2 grant that was awarded."
Yeah.
So are
Yeah,
those
it's
the-
title. It's grant money, but it's not ESSER 2 grant money, it's title grant money.
It's it's possible that there was some confusion on the funding source.
That's fine.
We can certainly clear that up.
That's
with a revision.
Here, you understand is that ESSER money's not eternal.
And neither is the grant money.
Well, no,
Neither is the
but-
title money, yes. So they know that they're a 1 year only position that to be renewed every year if we get funding sources.
Okay, so I
That
guess
was
we
how
should
that
just
was.
change that to the title.
Yeah, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's
We
just
can
change that
certainly
to a
do
title
that.
grant. Okay, no problem. So that tells me that, so next year, we will have 6 paraprofessionals at Assawamsett?
If we get title funding, yes.
Oh, we don't know that we've got that yet.
We don't. We won't find that out until July.
No,
Every
but-
summer, we write a
but in
title
fairness,
grant.
The population hasn't. If anything, it's trending more in a supportive direction relative to those funds.
Okay. So that's good news.
I would say, yes, it is good news.
Okay.
The demographics, I think, support continued support.
Okay.
It seems across the schools, textbooks is always a hot topic, but we're showing a reduction in the budget for textbooks. Is there a particular?
And there is an answer to that?
Yep, so there are no new official textbook requests this year. The funds would cover the same as last year, except after the curriculum director did a review in coordination with new ELA materials that are anticipated to be purchased out of ESSER funds, there is a reduction for a few miscellaneous programs as they would be duplicative in nature. One is called Pebble Go, Raz Plus, and Reading A through Z. I'm not sure if Pat wants to add anything on that.
So, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, we're in the process of reviewing materials now to buy a new high quality ELA program to replace the Reading Street program that's currently being used, that's 12 years old. And so because we're using grant money, ESSER 3 money for that, the principals did not need to include textbooks into their
So if I,
budget
Steve,
lines.
if I understand the question, I think it's a fair question just for the community here. The reduction within the textbook line does not mean a reduction in supporting support. It's that we're using some grant funding
And that's gonna.
to make that
yeah,
adjustment.
That makes sense.
So my concern with that would be is a couple of years down the road, this could potentially show a sharp increase in the textbook area. Right? So I know in the past, we've tried to keep the textbook line item budget as that amount and then show an offset by grants, just so that it's clear to, for example, the towns, right? It's always been last year was only this, but part of it was collected from the grant money, so.
I think we'll have proper documentation to show that though, but valid
Okay.
point. Yeah.
And does this textbook line item include consumables?
So, yes, it does.
For the next 2 years.
Yes.
using the
Got it,
ESSER
okay,
money.
great, thank you.
Using the ESSER money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the salary line items that are in the respective schools, that also includes any step in level change, right?
That is correct.
Based upon the information that we have. Right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we have level advancements, some
Okay.
retirements, individuals who may have replaced others with different steps or levels than they previously had. So lots of changes there.
Got it. Okay.
And that addresses, that takes in migration, people leaving, going. I mean, we just specific to this school, we just had a late, which is very unusual, retirement after this budget was produced at Swansea.
Okay.
For this year. So we could take that into account, and that's usually typically a new hire saves a couple of dollars there, and we'll make that adjustment, but.
Right.
But all, it takes into account all those adjustments made.
Okay. Anybody else have
You want to
questions?
move on to FES? Or you got more on FES?
I just want to say I'm pleased that we're looking at another teacher at these two elementary schools.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Good job.
Well, I'm always fearful because we don't know the kindergarten numbers.
Yeah, I think the two things that we've done real well with this budget, one, and especially that area, is we're protecting those, a position at each of those elementary schools, and we've also restricted school choice at those grade levels. I think
Yeah.
those are
Yes,
two
yeah.
very important parameters to keep moving forward, and we'll have a better idea.
Now, it does bring up the question that these larger numbers that are starting in the primary grades are going to move up to grays.
Yep.
And we're already seeing that. And I did notice in this year, we're actually forecasting actuals. We're not adding additional students that I know the principals had advocated in the past, right? So we're actually taking the actuals from third grade up to that. So it still raises that number, you know, based upon the model that we have in place at Grace. So that's only going to continue to be an issue as these larger classes we've had in the primary combine when they get to Grace.
Yeah, I think the one blip is the intermediate school setup, because I think you have greater flexibility at the middle school and high school to
Yep.
absorb the way the class structure is and so forth. It is that 4th and 5th grade model that we're gonna have to take a look at, both communities will take a look at as they move up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a credit to the staff there with the social emotional learning program. It says they're in their 4th year, which is an established program, and given, you know, the challenges of the last 2 years, I'm glad to hear that they're well established in that area.
Nice.
Point taken, yeah.
Is there an equivalent program, as I guess a good segue as we go over to the Freetown school?
We're doing edibles.
Is there?
I didn't hear the end of
The SEL.
The SEL program?
Where?
There is at FES?
FES? No, we have a district program at AES,
Yeah.
and then that runs through Grace now.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome.
So that captures both populations.
It does capture both.
Mr. Senkowitz?
So, and Liz, you know, I'm gonna wait till the end.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait till the end.
Next?
I'm all set.
You're all set?
A lot of the questions are consistent across all the schools, so.
I
it's a-
agree.
So, but, yeah, no,
All right, so is there any other section you want to address right now?
there's always other sections.
I know,
Um,
but have you call it out?
So I know we've had this, maybe we can get to the capital. Let's get to the capital piece, right? So I noticed all the capital improvement pieces. Is there any plans of a secondary warrant within Lakeville for any capital for this year?
I would say that I would like to request additional planning time. A lot of these capital items are relatively, I'm not going to say they're new, but we have, if you look back to the capital plan from 2 years ago,
Yeah.
it was a lot less in substance. I think the Director of Facilities and I have both worked pretty hard to make this more of a collective representation of what we feel the district needs. With that, I would say some of the hot topics to consider might be like a feasibility study for like the Red Barn replacement, possible turf field. I think we need a little more time to look at that. We estimated a cost to look into a feasibility study of about $150,000, but we haven't based that off of any quotes or any discussions with possible vendors that could do that study for us. But I think I'd like to request a little more time on that. I think that would be one of the big pieces. A lot of the current needs that we have, and I did try to add the funding source because that was also an element we hadn't previously shown. a lot of the current needs that we have, I feel, will be funded through some of these ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 grants. In some cases, we might want to look to see and work with the town. For example, fire doors. We might want to work with Chief O'Brien to see if we can figure out a grant funding source for that as well. So I think we have a little more studying to do before we go forward with a warrant request. And also with the changing of superintendent and whatnot, it would be my request to the committee to have a little more time before we go to the towns with the warrant.
So it would not be an additional warrant for this year?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not totally on board with that strategy, especially where Freetown does get an additional check from us for the leasing of the schools.
Yep.
And I know in years past, we have proposed some building specific to reinvest that money back into FES.
Okay.
So is there opportunity that either taking out of the operational budget and put it towards that secondary piece where we're reinvesting that item?
I can certainly speak to the town accountant
Okay.
to see.
And I know that's been something that we have done in the past, so that,
Okay.
what is the lease payments we get?
I believe it's 60,000.
$60,000.
Right, so that, there could be something that could be done, and
Sure.
I'd hate to lose that, piece that done that.
Okay.
The same thing,
That's
so if
only
I,
just so the group, or more for the community, I think the board members have heard this before, that refers to space at Freetown Elementary School in the town of Freetown.
Yep.
The space that's rented out here by the collaborative at the intermediate school is deferred from the collaborative
Yep.
tuition.
Yep.
So the town of Lakeville does not receive that, it goes right directly to our.
Yeah. And as if anybody else in the committee would do it, but I'm up to the technology section.
I do have one
Okay.
question. So we've had some interactions with the fire chief
Okay.
and some of the requests he's made. Where are we with all of that?
So, I mean, that in reference to the doors and
Well,
some
I
of the
know
others,
she mentioned the
yes,
doors,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why, yeah.
So we have cleared up all of the items with the exception of the fire doors.
That's all that's left on that list?
That's
That
correct.
entire list, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
And the only reason we haven't cleared up the fire doors is because when we had the vendor come, the estimate was much more greater in scope than we originally anticipated. And we
Chief
basically,
was invited to that as well, so he was actually
Was
part
he
of
in
that.
he
attendance?
was,
Yeah.
he was part of the meeting. And basically at the end of the day, he wanted the vendor to certify that we were in full compliance if the repairs were to be made. At that point, the quotation significantly increased from the vendor. So
Based upon the requirement to be certified?
that's correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Wow,
That's correct.
that's,
interesting.
yeah, that is interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
But I did see that list, and that list was really long, so kudos to you for checking all those boxes off.
Thank you.
And some of it was very minor. It was,
Sure.
you had storage stuff, whatever, but
But we're working with the chief on that last issue, hopefully to get resolved. We originally
Absolutely.
thought the initial price was gonna be something that we could capture within our operational and they would support, but if we're not gonna be in compliance or get certified, then it wasn't worth the investment even for that, so.
wow, okay. Thank you.
I think the item down the line you need to take a look at, you're gonna go to technology in a minute, is that campus sort of project relative to bathroom facilities, the storage barn facility, which is, just to keep in mind, I think I mentioned this last time, continues to not only house, but we're getting additional equipments. And so.
It's the inside, just
Yeah.
not the outside of it,
Yeah,
right?
it's the,
So,
it's the value of equipment, in addition to obviously the athletic field upgrade, I think is probably something that the communities, I think, would be very supportive of moving forward. And a couple of board members here specifically.
You're in technology now.
yeah, so this is an area that I look at, and has potential of one-time funding pieces, the technology. So just to understand the thought process of why put it into the operational budget when we can potentially put it in a secondary capital warrant.
Well, I think right now with the timing of having ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds available, I would be, I would look to those funds first. So if there are items that we feel could be funded from those grants, I think it would be difficult for us not to look at those funding sources or other possible grants. that was sort of the, and then, of course, this budget was developed based on the requests by the Information Technology Director as well, and collaborating with him. I don't know that there's anything large enough on this budget, with the exception of Chromebooks and desktops and projectors, hardware requests, if you will, that would be large enough to be presented on a town warrant.
Okay.
I do think we are going to have some future projects coming down the line, however, that I think will require possible hybrid of E-rate or potential other grant funding, potential town warrant funding as well.
On to the facilities piece.
So we do have a question in tech.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you just remind me or give me, we mentioned at a previous meeting an update on this transition for a new student information system and potential impact on budget. I have a memory of doing some great work with ESSER funding for that, but is there an impact on the budget and how did that play out? Or just an update on that overall?
Sure. So we actually recently signed to migrate over to Aspen. We're currently with Redeker. We were going to be looking at a price increase from Redeker based upon the bidding process, even under state contract pricing. Aspen came in with a lower annual cost. It wasn't a significant reduction, but it was still a reduction rather than an increase. We are holding a $20,000 placeholder in the event that we may need to run two systems for a short bit of time. However, when we spoke to Aspen, it seems that they feel that we should be on target with a July 1 transition. We were able to secure the state's approval for utilizing ESSER 2 funds to fund the implementation and the one-time training costs for the system. We were able to make the tie to the improvement of the system, really providing some benefits during a time of COVID, during a time of where we might need to do some hybrid models, different attendance models, and different ways of communicating with parents electronically. So we were very pleased because that was a significant, that would have been a significant cost to the district. So.
Creativity, that's great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We've accelerated with the contract signing as well, so we've really pushed that along nicely to make sure.
And the go-live date of that?
So we're hoping for a July 1.
Okay.
That is the anticipation.
So that's a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Right? Especially with 2,700 Chromebooks coming back into the district. And
Yep.
my understanding, looking at the contract, there's also some scheduling pieces that have to be done specifically at the middle school, but it's still all July 1.
July 1. And we're trying to line up some training dates for our staff. We do believe that we have sufficient funding in one of the PD lines in the budget to accommodate for student information system training for our staff. So we'll be looking at the list of individuals. We'll be developing that soon of who would be required in attendance so that we can have a train the trainer type of experience. There will be live web videos available for new incoming staff to work with their mentors on utilizing training under the new system as well.
For those tech-savvy individuals I know on the board that are interested, I mean, it's a pretty dramatic schedule. That's why we actually secured through our kickoff and signed the contract to get that process started. So there's a lot happening in the months of March, April, May, leading to that point, and then obviously the summer work that she's referencing as well. Special education aspect of the component won't actually go in live until a little bit later.
Yep.
That's built in just the way the process is.
Yeah, that would be a December 31 cutoff, would be the transition to special education. They have to get the core student information system up and running first, and then we would start progressing to making the transition for special education.
So the family portal too, for families to access that rollout would be on the same schedule?
That is correct. That's part of the core system.
Right. And
be
sup-
set for the start of the school year for the fall.
Yeah, and then support and outreach on that would come from the district and not Aspen, but that would just come directly from principals or the technology department.
That's correct. And there is a largely supported user community where, if a principal had a question, they could go and try to work with the user community for the answer. And then obviously Aspen is also a resource as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm on section 13, student services. If anybody has any other questions prior to that, in the summary page, on page 2 of that section, the residential tuition, the 71K, is that to cover the 2 additional students that we're expecting out of district placement?
I'm sorry, Steve. Oh, here we go. I was having trouble getting to the section. My apologies. Okay.
Towards the bottom there, the $71,000. Liz, can you speak to that, or Kara?
I don't know specifically.
So,
Broken down day school, then residential, that's what you're asking, the 71.
okay, the residential, 71,167.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry, Steve, could you repeat your question?
Is that covering the 2 additional
placements?
That's correct. So, when it's the day school, the residential, and collaboratives, our student services department puts together a detailed schedule by identified individual of what kind of needs they're projected to have, and then what those tuitions would be, and that's how these numbers are developed. So yes, that's correct. It accounts for the 2 additional students to bring us to 37.
But it could fall within any of those categories, Steve.
Got it, okay.
Listed, right?
That's right.
I know last year, one of the big ticket items was an additional psychologist in the district. Are we maintaining that in this budget?
We are.
Trying to this year. I digress. Ms. Kerwin had it in her
That was a
report.
heavy
You
sigh
probably
there.
saw a little
Okay.
bit later. It is still part of the planning process moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to steal everybody's thunder, so on the facilities, I know one of the things that we did not fund was the additional truck. Was that out of not really a need, or was a wish list item versus just purely budgetary?
Okay, so the used sander grounds vehicle?
Yeah.
That is a wish list item. We didn't feel that in the spirit of needing to hit certain budget targets, that this was a critical item to be funded. However, I would request, that maybe the committee consider it if, for example, we're able to make some adjustments to accommodate to add it back in. I know that the facilities department could certainly use this vehicle. Actually, it's been recently communicated to me that it's more of a need than initially thought because of the snow season.
So we've done this in the past.
Okay.
This is actually a good example of using that second warrant article for a capital piece.
And we have
So-
done that.
Right, so it wasn't part of the operational, considered a one-time piece. Obviously, there's maintenance and that aspect to it, but purchasing a vehicle was something that we've done and supported by both towns in the past.
Okay.
So, and the reason why I bring it up, because I think Lakeville does have a requirement or a deadline coming up.
They do.
Did we miss it?
No, we did not.
It's the beginning of March, am I?
It is
Yeah,
coming.
okay.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good example as far as my suggestion to.
Sure.
Well, I was just going to say, we could also just look at what kind of adjustments and maybe it can be covered.
I would say vehicles
You
should
want-
fall under a capital piece,
Capital,
not an
okay.
operational. Let's use that.
All right, Mrs.
I know it's
Barron.
25K compared to a
22.
$40 million budget. It's a drop in the bucket, but
But I think that's an excellent idea. I think far too often, unfortunately, our cuts are made in the maintenance area, and it would be a real boost to those folks that work so darn hard, especially a sander. Are you kidding? Yeah, I think we need a sander.
She votes for Sanders.
I did the other morning about 422 when I was speaking to Mr. Goodwin. He was probably asked me to rethink this line.
Right.
Receiving the call from him with the crew working.
I've moved on to go back to the capital pieces here. So understand you want to table this, come up with a more long-term strategy, but I think this is great information as far as the topic areas that we need to think about here. Probably should get onto the respective towns' capital expenditure planning pieces. And I know the last couple of years have been difficult, but they typically have a town meeting in the fall, which they would address some of these.
Okay.
So as we think about the planning aspect, we should bring up some of those items for the fall town meeting.
Sure.
And better use of that piece instead of out of the operational.
Sure.
Well, let's just remember that that's really a special town meeting in the fall, isn't it?
And we also are having conversations with Assawamsett, for example, the town of Lakeville, which has done some projects for the school. We're looking at potentially the cafeteria at Assawamsett, where we've done some classrooms, and I know Mr. Goodwin and Ms. Lees are working specifically with the towns relative to the elementary schools where some projects could be done.
We're pretty close to completing the painting and the new carpets totally in Assawamsett, right? This summer we'll complete, hopefully.
I think we are down to the last 1 or 2 classrooms.
Yeah.
That's why I referenced the larger area of the cafeteria maybe
Good.
being the next priority.
That's good.
You want to keep that last classroom as more something for you to remember by?
Oh, the old classroom, the old one?
I didn't say old.
Stop it.
Again, keep in mind that we also have the window project, the accelerated
That's right,
repair, and
Oh,
I just
I
saw
love
a
That's right.
huge document that Kara and Greg are submitting to MSBA on our behalf. I think Mrs. Fox has to sign the document tonight in relation to that. So keep in mind that project's moving forward as well.
Gary, that MSBA project only for windows, or could it be for the doors too that you were talking about with Chief O'Brien?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's for windows and doors.
Inside.
So could those fire doors work underneath that?
That's right.
The fire doors that we're referencing here at the high school.
Oh, those are at the high
Yeah.
school.
It's the high school that we were talking about earlier, if that's what you were speaking to. It would be inclusive of doors at Assawamsett, but the fire doors we were referencing are this building.
Thank you for a plan of not recouping all of our Chromebooks in 1 year. So I think that's a good strategy. I think so. That's a good path moving forward there, but we'll figure out how to do that. Onto the food service pieces.
Yes.
Andrea Fay has done a phenomenal job of finding funding sources to this, and I'm sure she'll continue that work. I guess the question is the dishwasher repair at the middle school? Is that out of commission? And I wonder if that moves it up the priority list based upon the list that we have here.
That's correct. My understanding is it is out of commission. I'm not sure how long it's been out of commission. I can certainly follow up with some details with Andrea. I can see if there's anything we can do potentially to secure grant funding or,
Or good use of detention after school, right? So
That's right.
can we do that? Sorry.
I don't know if that's legal, but
Okay.
You still have one middle school student as well, right? You still know?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So feel free to use her after school. I have plenty of items that she should have done.
That's what your son is saying now that he's at the high school.
I can't even
right?
get her to empty the dishwasher at home, never mind. Okay.
If there are items that come up, I know it's a pretty comprehensive book. I know everyone picked up their books this past week and things, but we got them out to the towns. They were delivered to both towns as referenced
heard.
in Kara's
Yeah, thank you
piece,
for
both
that.
Freetown and Lakeville. But if there are additional questions, you can, if they're not asked tonight, forward them to me or to Kara directly, and we'll follow up.
absolutely.
So I know we're always trying to figure out I'm going to try and add something to the budget, right? So I know we talked a few weeks ago about the benefit of the breakfast program, and it has been free based upon that. So I was just curious of if we continue that, what would be the result of it? I think it would definitely be a worthwhile investment, especially at the primary grades. I know we don't only have it at grades and FES and AES. I can remember a few short years ago that we were talking about single digits eating breakfast.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worthwhile, and I'd like to look at what that cost would be. I definitely think it's a worthwhile investment, and I know Mr.
Yeah, we
Sylvia
can
mentioned
certainly
that
work on
it
that.
does reap rewards in that.
Sure.
So, especially since we usually do have a residual based upon the good work that Andrea Fay does in that if we can use that revolving fund to potentially get back to that, that would be.
And
I'd
people
like to
become
look into
accustomed
fund-
to it now. You see how the demand's gone up.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I think it's been encouraged by our promotion of the before and after care program at
Yeah.
the sites too.
Yeah.
So we have our kids going directly to the schools where they were only at one site. So that's also contributing a little bit to that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's been well received by parents in the community.
I think Mrs. Barron had a question.
So in going through all of this, I noticed that we're going to continue with the 6 part-time interventionists for elementary school to address learning loss at the cost of $75,000 out of the ESSER 2 budget. We all talked at some point about adding math specialists at the 3 elementary schools, full-time math specialists. We understand how problematic that can be in 3 years, obviously, because we don't know where our budget will be. The other side of it is I'd like to have a conversation about the learning loss that we do have. We've got the data that has supported it. Thank you to Pat for the MCAS data and so forth, and what this committee feels. I feel as though it's very important that we address this. Elementary school, let's face it, is a foundation. Kids don't have a good math foundation, they are going to be crippled for the rest of their career here at school and perhaps for life. So we've got certainly some 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, maybe 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, who have lost a lot over the last couple of years and probably need somebody to just help them boost it up. I think that the interventionists are great, but 7.5 hours a week for those individuals, those retired teachers, they're doing a great job. Just not sure that we can get everybody up to par. So I'd like to just have a conversation about it.
Couldn't agree more.
Do we have math specialists in the budget this year?
We do not. But I did talk to Kara about it. And Mr.
So I
Medeiros.
think future conversations, to Sherry's point, are a worthy conversation to be had as we potentially look at some flexibility within some grant monies and maybe some adjustments and/or a variety of personnel issues we can take a look at. So I think that would come into that category, Sherry, future conversation.
Kara, about how much is an individual if we were to hire one for each?
So usually we base it off of a level 3, step 3, I believe, and that's around 50,000. I'm just rounding here. That's without fringe benefits. So we could be looking at 50 to 75,000 with the fringe benefits.
50 to 75,000 each.
That's right.
Per.
Which year?
So we're probably looking at about 225,000 maybe. Tops. Yes?
That's correct.
Anyone else?
Oh, I can certainly get behind that. I mean, that's targeted intervention. It pairs nicely with literacy at that age level.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious on the adjustments that are coming. Perhaps we could certainly entertain that.
Well, that's what I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to give you a sneak preview. I think there potentially is some available monies that might be shifted, but there might be other priorities too, and I think that has to be part of the conversation, right? I just would suggest not taking the math specialists in isolation of some other high priorities as well relative to staffing.
Points well taken that those are a priority.
Need to be part of
Yes.
that conversation.
Yes.
Agreed. Understood.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
2 final questions. I know it's shocking. We are still in the budget covering AP textbooks, correct?
I believe so. That is correct.
Okay. And then my last question around the revolving funds. All of these close out to E&D except for with the regional transportation? Is that?
So E&D will close out to regional transportation will close out to E&D because we're only allowed to hold a deposit for 1 year unless we spend it. Now, we did add the extra bus this year, so naturally it will close to E&D to cover that. So yes, you're only allowed to hold that money for so long before it does revert back theoretically to E&D or the towns.
So if we put in FY23, if we put in money into that regional transportation fund, that would flow to E&D in FY24?
That is correct.
So it would close out, so it would be part of our certification at the end of FY '24?
That's correct.
Okay. But we can utilize that at any other point?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other funds that are like that?
Not,
Revolving funds?
no, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yep.
So nothing remains open. They all eventually flow out to E&D, except for, I think, school choice,
Well,
right?
typically, school lunch would have its own balance, and it would keep accruing.
Yep.
So that's one that wouldn't revert. In years past, I believe some of our other campus programs have run a deficit, so theoretically E&D has covered that
Yep.
shortage. In the event that it runs a surplus, I believe we would allow that surplus to remain in the revolving fund, hence the term revolving funds. So there are only under special legislation allowed funds that are supposed to go to E&D. So regional transportation is one.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And I know we've talked in the past, I think it's pre-you, coming up with a model that campus programs, so we could forecast it, so it'd be part of offsetting the operating, because it's another revenue item.
Sure.
I think what's transpired in the last 2 years, I think we're
Yep.
back to square one about that, but eventually we should get to that point, so
Yep.
we can look at that and see what we can utilize that as far as offsetting the pieces. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so additional questions as you pour through these, we direct the superintendent and Ms. Lees. But that was a good initial discussion. And still some adjustments potentially to.
Keep in mind, we moved up the public hearing to March
Yeah.
23rd, if I remember correctly, Kara?
Yes, so.
Correct? To meet the timeline. Originally, it was in April, but it's part of the budget package. So we do have another school committee meeting,
Yeah.
March 9th, and then a subsequent meeting,
That's correct, March 23rd.
March 23rd. So any adjustments, we would have public hearing, and it's typically then actions taken and then a future vote, school committee. So we got a couple meetings to take care of that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So we have reports to committee.
I've included a summary of budget planning and future updates in your packet. We will be noting any changes as the governor's budget works through the legislative approval process. Our health insurance consultants are working on compiling our bid results. As we stated, we do feel that we will receive some favorable results compared to our original projections. Negotiations are in process, may impact the budget model. As it relates to ESSER 3, we have recently received approval of the funds from DESE of $2,218,998. The Massachusetts Department of Early and Secondary Education did request that we reallocate funding originally intended for upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant, as they felt we were unique. We were the only organization to make such a request to improve our wastewater treatment plant. I think that might be because there might be few districts in the Commonwealth that have their own on-site treatment plant. Although I feel we presented a good argument, which even referenced EPA regulations for how a project like this would link to COVID and preventative measures, such as making various wastewater treatment upgrades, could reduce risks related to COVID and other measures to our facilities. The DESE felt they were in uncharted territory. As a result, they are consulting with the Federal Department of Education, and meanwhile has asked that we reallocate funding to another line item.
So Kara's being very polite if you read between the lines there. The district did a phenomenal job of presenting the case why it should be necessary and able to use those funds. They didn't have any example to go off of, weren't sure what to say, so asked as a placeholder to move that money somewhere else within, which we've subsequently done.
To the chair.
Yes.
But allows us to go back to that if they change their
Yeah,
mind.
it's a placeholder.
That is correct.
To your point, we are a unique district, which is why we're only getting 0.75 increase.
How about that?
So,
Yeah.
Right.
So we could send that back there.
Right.
What was interesting about the response that Kara shared is it wasn't that it didn't supply enough ample information. It's that they couldn't respond
They just didn't know,
Yeah.
because they didn't have any other examples of that.
No, and Pat was on the call as well, So for the time being, as a result, we have reallocated $327,065 to the PPE line for sanitizing school and for PPE purchases. However, the district will be taking a look at other uses and revisions of the funding that may be necessary.
We were trying to get you not to raise your hand before you said that.
Yes.
It's a place. It is a placeholder with a lot of other areas that we can explore, but
That's correct.
But that fell within their guidelines for the time being.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
So we can get the money and then do what we want.
We can ask for another reallocation adjustment.
Well, it's going to be a reallocation adjustment,
Okay.
but we know where the money is.
That's right.
I struggle
Amazing. I know.
with the recent announcement that we're putting more money into PPE.
Agreed.
Right, so I just want to be very
Well, that's
cautious
really why
about
Karen
that.
wanted to share why it is where it is.
Okay.
Yep.
And there are other places to look, so
We-
we just did that to expedite this process.
That's correct, to expedite the approval process.
Yep.
It was the one piece that was holding it up.
Ugh.
And so we do realize that there will be a reallocation adjustment to this line.
Okay.
And lastly, but not least, we are ready to submit our compliance documents and the routine maintenance and capital plan to the MSBA. I will be in close connection with the MSBA staff to try and get a feel for when the MSBA will be assigning the designer to the project in the OPM, and then we can get a better idea of the timeline. I recently worked with the town administrator of Lakeville and the town accountant on sort of a debt projection timeline of when this may all happen. So for now, that's what we're using for timelines, but once we get a better idea from MSBA, we will certainly update the community.
So if this all goes through and fast forward to the end of October, right? That's the appropriation from the MSBA, right? And then we have to go to the towns for the balance, is that?
So the town would have to approve the entire project.
Yep.
As if they're funding it 100%, with the knowledge that the MSBA would be willing to kick in 53.53%.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that on this year's town meeting?
So that would be, we believe it will be in the fall.
Okay.
Because of the way the timing of the process works.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more the timing of the MSBA.
Yeah.
We would ideally have loved to see it in the spring, but their definition of accelerated program in mine
is a different definition.
Slightly different.
Yeah, but I seem to remember even in the past, that's when it landed. They never moved those along very
No, but I
quickly.
mean, if you recall, that was the original program. This accelerated was.
Okay.
So, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but so Lakeville is aware that we want to be on their, let's assume this all goes through, we're going to be on their special town meeting in the fall.
That's correct. Again, we're held to the timing of the designer, ultimately.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when does this have to be completed? Does this have to be done by the end of the fiscal year or?
There isn't a required as far as construction, there isn't a required end date to be completed by. It's more of a when do we need to get the appropriation done, and I believe that's within 1 year and 90 days of the original invitation.
Okay. So in theory, we're looking at the end of,
January, I believe.
well, we're looking at the summer of 23 for the project to be done.
Yes, the summer
Right.
at the end
Yes.
of the 22-23 school year.
Okay.
And I think no later than next January for appropriation, final appropriation.
Okay, got it.
Deadline.
But when it's construction, they
And-
always have to give you leeway.
Is there any necessary requirement of town resources outside of money? I get that, but do we need to use the highway department or anything for this? I just was looking at potential scheduling. We have a very small window. We have to get in there July 1st, right?
Right.
And we want to get out of there so that way we can do the cleanup and ready for the start of school. So we have definitely a tight timeline.
Sure.
And I just want to make sure we're communicating to Lakeville what we need so that they can put it in their planning.
I think that's too early for us to
Okay.
determine, but we certainly will,
Okay.
be careful with the details.
So your building inspector will be part of the whole process, so, there's always punch list stuff that goes 2 years out.
What are you, like a project manager?
I might be.
Okay.
It might be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Koblinski.
So under the heading of professional development, A new professional development committee was established for the 22-23 school year and convened on January 11th to discuss professional development topics for next year. The committee has a nice assortment of people that are part of this team, paraprofessionals, regular educators, special educators, and representatives from pre-K through high school were on it. So I think it's a nice mix of people to give some good input on professional development topics moving forward into next year. And then some of what they have indicated they would be interested in would be cultural proficiency training, more on social emotional needs, some PD on trauma-informed teaching, DEI and inclusion practices. Our next PD days for this year are 2 half-days coming up, March 4th and May 6th. And those will be building-based with a CPI refresher training course being offered on March 4th for those who need that refresher training. And that'll be held here at the library, the high school library. As far as grants, Mrs. Lee spoke to you about the ESSER 3 that has now been approved, so we can start moving forward with some of our proposals for that. I also wrote another grant application for $103,521 to cover the cost of the iReady math materials. DESE has competitive grants for school districts to apply for if the materials meet the standard of highly qualified materials, and Curriculum Associates iReady materials are fit into that category. So I filed the initial grant. We should be hearing probably in the next couple of weeks, they said by the end of February, and then if that is approved, then I'll have to give them further information and apply for more, for the funding. The MCAS DESE report cards have been posted to our Freetown-Lakeville website, and the parents will be receiving their report cards. Most of them went out with the school report cards in the beginning of the school year. And then just an update on the ELA curriculum materials that we hope to buy with the ESSER 3 funding. Teachers are in the process of piloting 2 programs, which I had shared with you, Wit and Wisdom and Wonders. Both of those were highly rated by Ed Reports and Curate, and would be acceptable for the federal government and DESE to be used under these ESSER funds. The teams will come together in March. We'll talk about the pros and cons of the materials. We'll talk about which ones we actually want to adapt, and then we'll do a presentation to the school committee along with what those materials will cost. We have put them into the ESSER grant, but again, they allow us to move funding around, so we will make sure that we have everything we need for the purchase of the initial materials and the consumable materials moving forward for the next couple of years.
Is this program going to cover K-3 or K-5?
K-5,
Okay.
with possibility to, at some point, 6 to 8 to jump in. The middle school is not ready to do that yet, but both of these programs have a 6 to 8 component so that it's uniform throughout the district.
Okay.
Good to know. Anything? Yes, Mrs. Barron.
Thank you.
Dr. Kuzlinski, the professional development is coming out of ESSER 2 for $375,000, and that would cover the topics of interest you just outlined?
That's for the Highlander Institute to work for coaching still. The professional development, well, some of it will come out of that, but we also have a PD, district-wide PD budget that some of this will come out of.
And,
we're also in the process of attaining some new social emotional learning program using ESSER materials that will be
using ESSER funds?
Using ESSER funds to buy those materials, yes. ESSER required that 20% of the grant monies be dedicated to buying an SEL program that's district-wide. So that is what we we did. We convened an SEL team and looked at programs and materials, and they recommended a program to be purchased using ESSER funds.
So these topics that you, the teachers have asked for, they are coming from Highlander Institute?
No,
probably?
they're not. Those we would have to contract with people who were qualified to give this kind of PD, you know, for like trauma-informed teaching. Those are special education concerns for challenging students, somebody who has a social emotional background, like we had contracted when I first came here with Sarah Ward, and she provided SEL PD my first year here. So things like that, they would like refreshers on that kind of thing, is what the teachers are asking for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Curlin. Thank you very much. A couple of items under special education. We actually just received our 2022 LEA special education determination under Part B of the IDEA. Happy to report the district is meeting requirements as determined by their rubric, which does include both a performance and compliance element of special education. I included in the packet the rubric that was used, so you can look at those components. Continuing on, we continue to work on our tiered focus monitoring self-assessment work. It is well underway, and we are projected to have no problem completing that by the May 17th state deadline, which also includes the self-assessment and all the indicator reporting. Next up, we have already started planning for our extended school year programs this summer. We have our date set of July 5th to August 4th with applications out.
So we're talking extended day for you elementary teachers who know day 100 is today, too, the significance of day 100. Talking about summer.
Yes. And Mr. Medeiros referenced this earlier, but our newly hired school psychologist has unexpectedly resigned. She will be, her last day will be Friday before the school vacation. Very fortunately, I kept our contractor still in the wings, and she has healed from her accident, and she's taking on the rest of the contracted assignment through the end of the school year. So that is really good news.
Of the abrupt resignation, and now we didn't immediately go back to post at this point. We thought we could, based on Liz's kind of due diligence there, provide the services for now.
Yeah, so we'll it's not really a good time for posting right now. So another maybe month or two, schools will be getting out. We've really kind of tapped out the school spring market, I think, for the position.
Yeah, I guess that's just frustrating to hear, and it's certainly not anyone's fault, right? We fought like hell to get that into the budget last year, right, especially during the pandemic. Just trying to provide a little bit more social emotional support for our kids. I guess my question is, moving forward, if we feel like we're gonna have a hard time finding someone, is there a way to maybe better utilize those funds for that, from that position somewhere else to just provide additional supports? Something to mull over, I guess, but I think the position doesn't help us if we can't find anyone to fill it.
This is true.
So just something to think about, maybe report out at next meeting, but.
Yeah, and Will, I think Liz can attest this is not a Freetown-Lakeville issue. All of my colleagues through the directors are really struggling with trying to find qualified people to do this type of work.
Yeah. And Will, to your point, the school psychologists don't provide any social emotional support directly. They're strictly a testing component, but yeah.
I guess my main point being, is there a way to better utilize it? If we can't find somebody, right?
So Jean, that's the report.
No, I don't think she's done.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, just that's basically it. I've updated the census, and I don't have any an updated date for you yet on the next CPAC schedule meeting.
Okay. All right, yeah.
Gina, I was simply going to add, I want to compliment, Liz and Pat and we're working with Kara. It's been an interesting couple of years for a variety of things, but when you think of the juggling of a lot of the grants you heard tonight,
Right.
the increase, Pat putting in for an additional grant here, they've worked real well with Kara and the numbers to take maximum use of available funds and then aggressively go after more available funds which have been out there, and it's something I know this board over my tenure has talked about maybe not doing enough of in relation and really kind of pushing, and I think I just want to recognize and deservingly so throughout their reports and throughout even the budget, you heard a lot of that out, and to Will's point and others trying to tap into Sherry, trying to take available resources. I think they've really navigated that real well working with the Director of Finance, and I just wanted to acknowledge their work. Sometimes towards the tail end of our meeting they don't, because we're all kind of exhausted, or at least maybe this old superintendent is, but maybe you're not, but I am. Sometimes they don't get that piece. I just want to make sure I recognize them for the community to hear that. They kind of do that behind the scenes. They're that referee, right? If you're a sports fan, right? When you don't notice the referee if they're doing a decent job, but you absolutely recognize the referee when they're not doing that piece, and that's often what happens at central office, right? If they're doing their work, everything else kind of falls
No,
into
and
place.
we do acknowledge the fact that everyone's had to pivot and figure out new ways to do things and get creative, and we're still asking for more creativity, so thank you for all your hard work. Subcommittee updates. I have FinCom. Have we set a date? We need to do
To
that.
be determined.
Well, we need to do that so we can make sure we get the right people.
We had to first put Mr. Olmos.
Yeah, so we had to secure the names from.
Oh, that's right,
Freetown.
yeah, okay.
They didn't have representatives, so Mr. Owen's been in the process of doing that with both town administrators, and we
Awesome,
should
thank
have
you.
a regional FinCom meeting shortly.
All right, Superintendent Evaluation. we
Have no
don't
update there?
anything. Wellness Health.
Mrs. Barron?
We met on February 8th. We talked a lot about masks, so there's really nothing to report on anymore other than the fact that Mr. Medeiros is going to make sure that there are plenty of masks available for those students who still are requesting them.
Yeah, we have the uniqueness of, don't keep in mind that whole bus issue, right? So kids not
Yeah.
coming in, having masks on all day long and still having to go on to a transportation booth. So what we've done is we've upped some masks, for example, with the bus drivers and the bus company. In addition, especially at the elementary level, but even here. So we've taken that into account. We feel comfortable with that.
I think that was it was a short meeting. Things
Yeah, it
going
was.
well.
Okay.
We complimented our nurses.
Board of Health nurse continues for both towns. Lori Damaris has been
Lori,
a
yeah,
very
she's been
supportive
great.
person in communication with the nurses.
We've-
She attends all our meetings, and we have one more meeting at the end of the school year.
We are extremely fortunate to have her.
Yeah, she's done a phenomenal job working with our nurses.
Policy Subcommittee.
No update
Jen?
at this point, right?
No? Okay, and there's nothing for the
Mr.
vocational.
Sakowitz actually
Yeah,
does
go
have
ahead.
some breaking
so
news.
there actually is just a couple
Okay, good.
smaller things. So the final copy of Bristol Plymouth sent up the final copy of their regional agreement to DESI for approval. It's been there a month. They're still waiting to hear. So they have that. They've also scheduled a meeting with the town of Freetown on March 28th to go over their new exciting building project.
The building, yeah.
Yep. So all exciting stuff. It's a little bit more slow moving than I would like at this point, but there are a lot of kind of hurdles to jump over. But we're moving in the right direction.
Good.
So when Will alludes to the regional agreement, it means they're including Freetown as that conversation. Once that
Correct.
gets approved, we're moving forward.
Yeah, it's been a positive discussion coming out, just hasn't moved as quickly as we may have liked.
We're impatient.
So we do have some other business that properly comes before this meeting, and that is to report out to the public that the Superintendent Search Committee met many times, but then interviewed over consecutive Saturdays, and we selected 3 finalists. Those are Darcy Fernandez, who's the superintendent in Athol, and Chris Scully, he's Braintree? Principal in Braintree, and then Alan Strauss, who's a principal in Weymouth. We, as a committee, will be interviewing on March 9th, but we also have planned, still working on it, but planning for March 4th
members of the search committee to go to site visits to each of those districts. So we have a couple that are going to go out to Athol, we have a couple that are going to go to Weymouth, and a couple that are going to go to Braintree for the site visits. But in addition, following the guidance we received from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, we wanted to open it up to everyone the opportunity to meet these finalists. Therefore, on March 7th, we have selected several venues for different groups to meet each of the 3 finalists. We're going to have and they start at 5:30 on March 7th. Parents and communities will convene in the middle school auditorium, and LakeCAM will be present for that. Teachers will convene in the high school auditorium, and administration central office will convene here in the library. We plan to do, with the 3 finalists, 45 minutes at each of the 3 venues, giving them 15 minutes to swap venues. Everyone who can attend is encouraged to attend, ask your questions, meet the candidates, have an opportunity to see where we hope to go forward with this district. We've put a lot of time in. We had initially 32 applications, and we had to cull that down to 10, and then we got that down further to 7 interviews, and 3 finalists to advance. I think it'll be really important for as many people as possible to try to come out to these, we're calling them stakeholder meetings, and see where, ask your questions, and meet the candidates. And I see you have a question. They're all starting, so they're going to do 3 venues, right? And they're going to siphon through each one. So the parents will be at the middle school auditorium, and the first candidate, I think, is Darcy Fernandez, is what we're proposing. She will be there at 5:30, then 6:30 will be Chris Scully. It's on this piece. And, yes.
We'll be putting it in the superintendent's corner
We are going to
on our
publicize
website,
this.
so you'll have some more information.
You don't have to
coming.
worry about taking copious notes. We'll put it all out there. Okay, yeah, put it in there. So Darcy will be the first one that night from 5:30 to 6:15. Then at 6:30, Alan Strauss. And then at 7:30, Chris Scully. So that is our formal finalists for the superintendency of Freetown-Lakeville Regional School District. And we encourage as many people as possible to come out. And thank you, Superintendent, for making sure we get the word out as far and wide as we can.
And LakeCAM has agreed for those folks that
LakeCAM
can't
will
make
do
that Monday night activity, will be videoed, so they'll have that opportunity at least to view, in addition to the school committee meeting that same week.
So several of us on this committee were part of the search committee. It was a group of 9 individuals. They put in a lot of time and effort. We were consistent in our questioning, and we did have very good discussions following all of the interviews to come up with the list of finalists that we're proposing. I don't know if Steve or Will, you want to add anything to that, but I feel that we went through a good process with a very good group of people, and we're ready to go to the next step with input from our various stakeholders. Okay.
And then do you want to just talk about March 9th? There'll be...
That's when we're interviewing here, yeah. The school committee meeting on March 9th will begin with 3 45-minute interviews with each candidate, and hopefully we'll come out of that.
And those will be public meetings.
Those are public meetings. Yep. So that's it. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, unless there's any other business that may properly come before the meeting. Nothing? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.